of the Armstrong-Williams Show, where our guest for the full hour is the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, who, under his leadership, the Bureau launched Operation Summer Heat with local and federal partners, targeting the most violent offenders in Chicago, St. Louis, Memphis, and New Orleans and beyond. And for viewers new to it, set the table for this operation, Mr. Director, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Armstrong. As I said, this is breaking news. We've kept it quiet for the summer. Operation Summer Heat was a 3-month surge by the FBI with our state and local partners. We started at the end of June, and we just wrapped up at the end of September. And what we did was follow one theme: crushing violent crime, one of this administration's key priorities. And we went into every single field office. We have 55 field offices scattered across the country. And today, we're going to unveil the results of Operation Summer Heat and what law enforcement can do when you let good cops be cops.
What is it that you find that all these cities have in common that is lacking, where it takes an operation like Summer Heat to go in and disrupt this crime, make sure the partners have the resources that they need, and make sure that these criminals understand that their days of destroying and controlling communities and placing people in fear are over?
Well, I think a quick historical analysis is important here. You have to recognize that there was an explosion in violent crime, and it didn't happen in a month or 6 months. It happened over the course of years due to the prior administration's lackadaisical approach against crime, and violent criminals took advantage of that. So the FBI, under my leadership, we came in and said, okay, violent crime's exploding. Everybody knows that. We see that. You can't walk around these cities anymore. People are getting shot. Kids are getting shot. Drugs are killing our youth. We need to do what the FBI is best at and crush violent crime. So we targeted all the major cities in the country. We called our state and local authorities, and we said, we need you all in as task force officers. You have the ground level intelligence. We have to attack the criminal enterprises where they start and their entire spider web of networks across the country. And that's the beauty of Summer Heat. We went everywhere.
You know, what is fascinating, what you're insinuating here, is that this is not possible unless all the strategic partners are on board. It's a collaboration between the states, their leadership, the mayors, the municipalities. Why is that so important, and why does that give you the kind of effectiveness in terms of the results that you're seeking through Operation Summer Heat?
Because there is no one federal agency or the federal government that can account for the safety of the entirety of the nation without our state and local law enforcement partners. You have to recognize the 1 million or so state and local law enforcement partners across our 50 states doing the job. They have the best relationships in the community. They have the ground level intelligence. They also have assets and resources that when we sync together with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, that is the most dynamic police force on God's green earth. And that's what the beauty of moving agents out of DC, as you and I have talked about at other times. When you take 1,000 folks out of DC and put them into the field, they are supporting Operation Summer Heat on a permanent basis with state and local law enforcement, because there's less people in DC for the FBI and more intel analysts in the field, more federal agents in the field, and more support staff in the field. That's what it takes to build up these cases. That's what people don't realize. You can't just walk into a city and say, okay, there's 150 law enforcement officers here, let's go arrest people. You have to build a ground game of intelligence that takes months. That's what we did in Memphis. That's what we did in Chicago. That's what we did in New Orleans. And that's why at President Trump's direction, we went in quietly months ago into these cities to set phase 01. Now we're going in with the Guard to complete that project. And that's the beauty of operations like Summer Heat.
When you say going in with the Guard, I assume you're speaking of the National Guard. What role will they play? And have you, through your involvement in lowering crime dramatically in Washington, D.C., found the process and a formula to better use the National Guard to complement what you're already doing?
We absolutely have. Under President Trump's leadership, we needed the National Guard in Washington, D.C. You and I both know. We live here. Washington, D.C. was a hotbed of criminal activity. I mean, we had an assassination of Jewish students and interns. We had an intern from Congress get murdered. We've had so much drug crimes here. So rightfully so, President Trump sent this in quietly months ago to, again, set the stage. The FBI take 01 operations, phase 01, set the ground game intelligence, work with MPD. But in order to complete the mission, the president was right. We needed a National Guard to set a stable perimeter. That is the criticality of what the National Guard brings to this fight. We don't need them being law enforcement officers, and they're not. I want to make that crystal clear. What they allow law enforcement to do, the FBI, the interagency, state and local authorities, is to work safely within the city street corners to operate and conduct investigations, to bust into houses, to take bad guys off the streets, to seize firearms and guns. And so they don't have to worry that the next house over has another gang activity in it that might attack them because we didn't know about it. And that's the beauty of having National Guard. And they're going to be setting up these perimeters in all these other cities thanks to the president.
Walk us through your Operation Summer Heat chart here. What are we looking at?
So as I was saying, Summer Heat was all 55 field offices across America. And while we can't give you all of every single 55 field offices stats, I just wanted you to look at some of these here. In 3 months, Armstrong, Summer Heat had 8,700 arrests. In 3 months, Summer Heat had 2,281 firearms.